Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Great.
Great. All right, so I've got to adjust. I think I need to use this, and so I said I'm going to use this. But you know, I feel like I'm a rock star when I'm like standing up here. I did a conference. I don't remember where it was, Texas, Chicago, somewhere. When for the first time I wore one of those little ones that has a little mic thingy here, and I really felt I should get up and boogie or something. You know, it's like these entertainers. But the holding thing is going to be difficult for me. So if you see me starting to drift, because I don't like using these, just somebody go, and I won't think you're telling me you disagree with me. And I'll say, oh, gotcha. So I'll pull it up and I'll make sure you can hear me. Andrea, thank you very much for your comments about foster care. Part of my 3 year of those 30-some years that I've been working was working in the state of Florida, leading there as deputy director of that Florida Foster Care Relief Project for exactly the same reason. The average length of stay for children in Florida back in those days, gosh, it's a long time ago, back in the day, was something like 52 months, average length of stay. And they averaged something like 8 to 10 relocations during that period of time, ranging from ages birth up to about age 8. And all of us know that that's harmful, right? So what I want to do tonight is, you are a very educated group, and this thing says it's an educational forum, and I don't know about that. There's a lot of educated folks about this topic in here, but what I will try to do, this material is give you first of all, a deep appreciation of why you're doing what you're doing and why please hang in there and keep on rolling. But also go inside to help you understand why moves like that are counterproductive, among other things. Harsh responses to young people, for whatever the reason, rarely work. Now, I'm going to be zeroing in on youth stage of development, and if you've heard that thing about the adolescent brain, and the normal takeaway when people hear the adolescent brain is, the adolescent brain just hasn't finished what? Hasn't finished developing. Therefore, these kids are impulsive. What else?
Reckless.
Thank you. Reckless. I mean, that's the storyline, right? They're immature. And I bought that line as a federal consultant for quite a while. And I'm excited to be here tonight because in the last 3 to 4 years, path-breaking work in brain research now explains to us that we had it all wrong. That what's going on with that brain has absolutely nothing to do with immaturity, but actually what's happening with that brain is getting them ready for, you're not going to believe this, it's getting them ready for adulthood. And so I hope that in the next 40 minutes or so, you'll have a good handle on that and allow that way of thinking about what's going on with you, allow that to inform the good work you're already doing and hopefully reinforce some of the good work that you're already doing. So we're going to start with the behavioral perspective, which is where the youth justice system is anchored. I just finished a 1-year contract with the state of Wisconsin because they had a mandated all intake workers. The intake workers are people who, when a young person is arrested or gets into trouble, the intake worker is the first one who talks to the youth and decides what happens. You go to court, whatever, for whatever the offense might be. Well, the training they were using for those workers, they had been using for 25 years. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to come in and help them rewrite that. I tried to be calm when they asked me to do it. Oh, let me see if I can work that into my calendar. Oh, let me see. Oh my God, yes, I'm reading what they had, and I went through all those 2 big notebooks. And from front to back, it was about the law. A legal perspective, which is concerned about what? behavior. Now, I'm going to say it's not all bad, but it's not enough. I'm going to show you why. Beautiful in terms of the research. So, guess what? I'm going to end my presentation with just giving you 2 or 3 little bullets on the new curriculum for the intake workers that is now going to roll out across the state. Me and Judge from Swamico, thing on the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me later, but he and I work side by side. He was on the legal side. Ratburn, yes, Kevin Ratburn, the Honorable Kevin Ratburn. We clicked because he looked at me when he looked at some of the stuff I'm sharing with you tonight. He looked at that and he said to himself, he said to me, oh my gosh, we should have had this 20 years ago, Jonathan. So I'm excited about that being in there. It's a step in the right direction. So we'll be sharing it with you. But I want to take you where it all starts, the behavior perspective, then the developmental perspective, get into that one, and then just a developmental approach to youth advocacy. And there's tons of youth advocates in here. So just want to give you just one good chunk of thinking about the advocacy work you're doing and some things I've already heard about that's sort of being planned and how that fits into some really good research. I'm going to wrap up with what I just talked about earlier, that developmental approach to youth justice. Okay. So to do this and to do it well, I'm going to walk you through, especially the note takers who are in the room. I'm looking around, I can see notepads all over the place. And so I'm glad I prepared the way I did. Because sometimes I just kind of go and I just stand up and just let it rip. I will do some of that because I can't help myself. But I'm going to take you through 4 critical points on the behavioral perspective. And these 4 points are the foundation. It's going to sound elementary, you're going to wonder where I'm going, but to get these 4 critical points, I'm going to build the edifice on top of that. This is the foundation. So, those who want to track along, here we go. Here's our first critical point. First of all, you all know this perspective here. It's behavior. You know the rules, the laws, the expectations. That's the typical approach. I mean, whether you're a court system or whether you're a parent. I mean, you know the rules. The first thing sometimes you say to kids when you get in trouble is, didn't I tell you? Nothing wrong with that. It's just limited. Especially beginning at about age 12, 13. It's woefully limited. And we'll explain why shortly. So what you do, what's right or wrong, here's the consequence. That, in a nutshell, is the youth justice system. You come in, here's what it is. I work with some folks in Galveston, Texas, and I know there's been some work here done on this topic as well, but I work with some folks in Galveston, Texas on a federal contract with their truancy issue. And I know some folks here have been doing some work around that. I was meeting with the folks at the police department because they had a school-based police system and police officers, because my son is a SWAT officer in Miami. I know how cops think. All right? And they are black and white. And when you do something wrong, you are supposed to what? So that's what they were doing. And he brought me to his office and he said, well, what else do you want me to do? And I asked him a very simple question. I said, so why are they being truant? I remember him looking at me kind of going, I don't know. And we put a simple thing in place that changed their whole thinking, and that is we did an assessment. Before you make any decision about any youth, you do an assessment, and in the first 8 of their 10 assessments, they found open cases of physical or sexual abuse in the lives of those kids who were being truanted. Do you think your brain's ready to go to school when you're being sexually abused? And unfortunately, the child welfare system wasn't talking to the school system. And so it's on us, it's on the adults. And so the pieces I want to give you are, well, when you do an assessment, what in the world are you probing for? All right, so here we go. Here's your first point. All behavior is driven by inborn, hardwired behavioral instincts that fit into 2 categories. So we are born with, in our lower brain system, I'm going to make sure I'm going to stop at like 6:15 so you all can ask questions. I'm not going to take you over, so just know that I've got you back on time. You're going to be fine. that our brain system, there are 4 parts of our brain we won't get into, but there's a subcortical and a cortical. All subcortical means is that's the part of our brain that you and I do not control. It does what it does on its own. And by the way, I'll leave some room for questions right there at the end, so please be willing. I just want to kind of roll through this and then we can open up for questions. And so the subcortical brain, there are 6 neural circuits, because nature says when this human being is born, the first thing I want to make sure this human being does is have lots of experiences, because experiences are the way we grow. And so let me give you those 2 categories and the neural circuits, or the instincts that are there. It's fascinating, because how many parents do we have in the room? I'm just curious. Okay, great. You're going to love this. So, the first system is called the approach system. So the first category is approach. Approach is how we advance our growth. And it involves 3 basic instincts that all children have. And by the way, you still have it. Exploring, discovering, and engaging. That's it. Now the researcher, Jake Penkscap, who did the research on this, he has other fancy words for it because he uses the names of the brain parts and all that stuff. You guys don't need that. It's just that we instinctively explore, discover, and engage. Please don't forget that. Because that's the key that unlocks the door to what's going on with a young person. That's the key to advocacy. The inborn instinct to what, in whatever environment I'm in, I need to what? Explore. Remember your 2-year-old, you sit them on the floor, what do? Stick their finger in an electrical socket if you don't watch them, right? They just start exploring. They got to discover things, and they have to engage. That's simple enough, and that's to advance my growth. That when I do that, nature's gamble is this. This is where it gets tricky. Nature's gamble is that exploring and discovering and engaging is going to be met by caring and nurturing adults and systems that will understand this human being's need to explore, discover, and engage or get involved. That's nature's gamble. And what we see in the foster care system is where, for some kids, that didn't quite work through. And that mentor is someone who's coming in to support this child who needs to continue exploring, discovering, and engaging in good ways. So that's the first category, approach. So approach is how we grow. And so the opposite of approach, the second category, you want to guess that? You don't approach, then you want to what? Oh, wow, who said avoid? Yay, I do this all over the country. Most people are like, withdraw, run away, throw things. No, you're right. Approach, avoidance. Avoidance. And you all know those 3 neural circuits. Fight, flight, or freeze. So you all know those. And you know why we have those neural circuits? We have those neural circuits not to advance our growth, but in order to protect it. But here's the key. We should be in approach mode, especially children, about 98% of the time. And avoidance, fight, or freeze, should be reserved for those emergency moments when, yeah, watch out for that car. Look, there's a snake over there, get out of the way. I grew up I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, you know, and we lived out in the woods. We got in the woods and play, and we were out playing one day, and someone kicked open a metal Chinese checkerboard. You guys remember those Chinese checkers? The little marbles, kicked open Chinese checkerboard, and underneath it there was a snake. Yep. Now I need what? Flight. Thank you. I need flight. Boom! Off I went. And oh, by the way, guess what I did? I think I was like 8. I ran in the basement, grabbed my dad's hoe. We had like 4 gardens. Grabbed his hoe that he holds the garden with, ran back out to do what? To kill the snake. So I went from flight to what? Fight. Now I'm gonna get it. Right? Amazing, right? But I don't need to be there all the time. When you grow up in trauma environment, guess what happens though? You end up not being in that approach system 98% of the time. The little child who's going, this is far. This is a long way. This is a long way. Guess what neurotransmitters and hormones is flowing through that child's brain when she's saying that? Cortisol and adrenaline. You know what cortisol does? Shuts down your thinking, prepares you to fight. And children who grow up in high-stress environments, certain parts of their brains are actually smaller because the avoidance system is not for growth. 2% of the time, about 2% of the time, we need that. Versus the approach system, guess what hormones and neurotransmitters are flowing when you explore, discover, and engage? Dopamine. Feels good. Oxytocin. That's a connection. They call that the love hormone. What they call the love neurotransmitter. So it's creating that bonding, and the brain is flowing. And by the way, guess what dopamine does for the brain? When there's lots of dopamine, it makes sure that the brain's neural circuits connect up and connect up well, so that I'm better able to, watch this, learn and regulate myself. And all regulate means is control. It means my ability to say, next week I'm going to finish my homework and get my assignment in. You know what it takes to do that? It takes a function called executive function. And if I have not had enough of that dopamine flowing, I've not developed a strong enough prefrontal cortex to accomplish that task. And that's critically important to know. Because sometimes we get kids in our classrooms, in our schoolrooms, in our courtrooms, or whatever, and you should see some of the things they use in the youth justice system that they call them conditions of supervision, and they make a whole list, whatever, and they hand them to this young person who's 14 to 15, and they're coming from an abusive family. They don't even have the executive function to pull those things off. And then they come back on a quote-unquote technical violation because you didn't follow through, and we call that young person a what? You are loser, incorrigible, delinquent, you're not following your instructions. There can be no behavior for which there is not sufficient neural circuitry. End of conversation. We ought to be in the business of building neural circuits, not in the business of punishing behavior. And how do you build neural circuits? The brain is experience dependent. The brain builds neural circuits in two ways, and this will be the last point. It says anything that happens on a regular basis, brain is really, really cool. Brain says, if this keeps happening a lot, then it must be that I need to what? I need to respond to this. And it'll lay down the neural pathway to respond. So if you hug me a lot as a child, hello, Jonathan, hi. Hug me a lot, guess what? I'm laying the neural circuit for what? Pro-social behavior. You smack me around a lot, I'll lay the neural circuits for being defensive. And the other way the brain lays neural circuits is, and this is important for young people, the brain also says, amazing research, it expects there to be certain kinds of opportunities to explore, discover, and engage, and it lays the neural circuits in anticipation of those opportunities coming so that it can respond. And the simplest example of that is when they're infants. And when my son was born, he came about 3 days early. And so we kind of had to go solo until her parents got in town. My parents came later. So we were going solo, so a little bit early. And so she said, I want to breastfeed. I said, your decision, whatever you like to do, that's fine with me, fine with me. Like I have a choice in the matter, right? Bring him in there or whatever. And then she looks at me, what a moment. She looks at me, she goes, so what am I supposed to do? I literally said, I don't know, put him up there. But guess what? That's one of the exploring and discovering and engaged experiences that the brain is what? Anticipating. And as soon as she did this, guess what his little body did? Oh my gosh, yeah, the rooting reflex, he curled up, as if to say, it's about time. We got been waiting on here. That's exactly what it is. She looked at me, she goes, oh my gosh. I looked at her and I went, oh my gosh. Neural circuits waiting. When you hit 14 or 15, I'm going to share a slide with you guys that gives me goosebumps. Their neural circuits are waiting. And guess what happens when the experiences they're waiting for don't occur? The brain prunes away those neural circuits and says, you must not need them. Brain goes through 5 growth spurts: birth, age 1, age 4, age 7, age 11, age 15. And each time it looks back and it says, in these neural circuits, because it oversupplies and says, it's infinite what we can do. You just keep the experiences coming and I'll wait a multi-billion, trillion circuits. Yeah, I'm ready for you. And then it says, whatever you didn't need, I'm going to prune it away. And we miss what's called that window or that sensitive period. All right, so let's keep on that. The next 3, we'll roll through those a little more quickly. Just want to get those 2 down. I just want to pause and make sure that's good. Make sure you got it. What are we doing? Oh, great, we're good. Just want to make sure you got that. We're good? All right, let me get through these next ones. Second point is growth and development, and that then moves from, here's where the adolescent thing gets challenging. Growth and development moves from, I'm going to put this out there quickly, it moves from the concrete to the abstract. So the exploring, discovering, and engaging first starts with concrete stuff. And so I need to explore my building blocks. I need to explore my mother's body. It moves from the concrete. You know, that's why kids need lots of what? Stuff. They play. That's why they crawl up and they grab almost what? Anything. You just leave it around and they'll grab it, right? Moves from the concrete. 5 years old, don't feel things. To the abstract. So once we hit 13 or 14, there's a shift. And now we want to explore not our concrete physical world, but now I want to explore, yes, myself. I want to explore who I am. So I need the same exploring, discovering, and engaging. And here's the key. When you were 7 or 8 years old, did you make some mistakes with your concrete exploring? Did you break some stuff? You know, and you're like playing with some things and it didn't quite work out, and you look and say, oops, oops. You know, and even little babies go learn. They don't look at you when they mess something up, and they go, oops, oops. I remember a kid I was working with, he was about 6 years old, and his dad was very abusive to him. We were out having something to drink, and he knocked over his milk and froze solid. Because he was expecting what? Yeah. That's shutting down exploration. I went, oops. That's okay. And then he unfroze, and he went, yeah, everybody makes mistakes, right? I said, of course. Anybody could have done that, right? Yes, anybody could have done that. It's not shutting down the exploring. But then when we go to the abstract, we're trying to explore self, explore who I am, what are my gifts and abilities, what are my talents. We want that to be what? Perfect. And if you make one behavioral what? Oh boy, you're in deep, 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 deep trouble. So Erik Erikson, my favorite researcher, said we need to give young people what he called a moratorium. I don't know what a moratorium is space to explore and discover who they are and to reinterpret behavior accordingly. So the third point is, about 15 minutes to go, third point is the youth stage of development shifts from depending on and really embracing external rewards to wanting internal rewards. And all internal rewards is that stark intrinsic motivation. When I was 6 years old, you promised me an ice cream cone, you'd get me to do just about what? I get an ice cream cone. External rewards. There we go. You hit 12 or 13. I remember this with my son. You 12 or 13, that stuff started working. He's like, well, whatever. I don't want the ice cream cone anyway. Well, then you can't go to whatever. Your kids say that? Well, if you don't do this, then I'm not going to say, I don't care, Mom. Yeah, but you're like, no, I don't like it anymore now. And And we see that as defiance, but there's a shift. Now the rewards need to be internal. And all that means is I'm making some progress in discovering and exploring who I am. And our last point, so we'll be ready to put it in the home stretch. This is the big one. During all of these stages, then, the great work that you all do is you try to make sure the environment is safe for the exploration. And so you try to reduce the risk factors that are there, and you try to increase the protective factors, because you want to let him explore. It's like when I brought my son home, it's amazing. You know, my then wife had plugs in the electrical sockets and those things you put on the cabinet, and you can't open the cabinet down the wall, whatever. I mean, I had to figure out how to get inside the cabinet and stuff I wanted. That's called protective. In other words, either I stand over this child and smack him upside the head every time he goes in the electrical socket, or I create an environment in which it's okay to explore, and I don't have to do that. So take your $10,000 vase out of the living room if you got a 2-year-old, right? You need to explore. And when we bring that to young people, oh my gosh, it gets challenging. So those are our 4 points there. Right? Now let's push that forward and sort of bring it home, and then we can do some question and answers. So now that you got that, here's what happens during development. Joseph Pierce, one of my favorite researchers, came along and spoke about the work you all are doing. This is wonderful. Without knowing it, I said I want one of your takeaways to be appreciating what you're doing. Joseph Pierce recognized that, well, yeah, young people change and their exploration changes because the brain insists that it changes, because their new environment is no longer crawling around the house and hanging out with mom. What's the new environment that a teenager needs to explore? What is the environment for them now? What is it?
Social interaction.
I'm sorry?
Social interaction.
Yeah. Even bigger than that. It's not mom's body anymore and dad holding me when I'm an infant. It's not the family, in my extended family. It's not running around the house. It's not being out in the yard or whatever. I hit 13 or 14. Now, my new territory for exploration is school and the whole community and our society. That's where it gets tricky. Because now I still need to explore, discover, and engage in order to advance my growth. Here's what Pierce says. Well, the brain knows that's coming. And so what we have interpreted as immaturity is the brain saying, in order for you to explore all of that out there, with the goal being developing and coming to your sense of identity, you need 3 new sensibilities. And these are those sensibilities. Around age 11 or so, an idealistic image of life begins to grow. And so the first sensibility, let me give you those 3 sensibilities that we misinterpret. The first sensibility is a sense of invincibility. You know the 14 and 15-year-olds who just feel invincible? In fact, the researchers call it the myth of invincibility. That's their negative terminology for it. They don't think anything can happen to them. That's why the military loves 18 and 19-year-olds, because they don't think they can be what? They don't think they can be killed. My son joined the Corps at 19. He's going to die. He served in Iraq and came back with medals all over his chest or whatever, and not an ounce of fear that I ever detected. They might get killed, but what? I'm not getting killed, and you were in the Marine Corps, so thank you for your service. Yeah. So invincibility. That is not immaturity. That's the brain saying, when you tap into discovering who you are, you've got to be ready to follow that wherever it leads you. My son called me from college when he tapped into his true self. I've shared this story with some, and I'm going to share it with you briefly because he called from college, and it wasn't the money call. I know how the money call goes. Right? Here's how the money call goes. Hey, Dad, how you doing? I said, I'm good. What you been up to, Dad? Oh, my God, okay. Nothing much. Any trips lately? Now I really know this is the money call. You've been doing okay. I'm doing great, Darren. How are you doing? It's a lot of fun. It's a little tap dance, and then he tells me what he needs, and I write a check, or I transfer the money to the account, whatever. This time he calls, and it wasn't that at all. This time he calls, and he goes, hey, Dad, thought something was wrong. I said, hey, just like that, a pause. And he goes, I'm not going to finish school. You know what I almost said? Oh, yeah, you are good old buddy boy. Oh, yes, you're not going to finish. Fortunately, I had the right response. I had many wrong responses. I was not a perfect parent. This one I got right. Instead of saying, oh, yes, you are, I said, guess what the right one was? What are you going to do? I want to know what's his next exploration. What is he discovering? And he goes, Dad, I want to be a Marine. I want to fight for my country. I almost dropped the phone. I really could not have been prouder. I mean, Ray, I love my country. I took him to Washington, D.C. 3 times. The Museum of History was gone to 1,000 times. Told him about how this country was founded by some folks who said, you cannot tell us what to do. You know, he just loves his country. And he said, Dad, I'm going to be very, very, very patriotic. I said, absolutely, absolutely, son. And that was his moment of, and here's the thing. If he did not have a sense of invincibility, and he discovered his true self is being a warrior, and that's my son. He's a warrior and a protector. That is his identity. He joined the police force, and he immediately joined SWAT. Joined SWAT, he became the SWAT leader. He called me at his first mission. He goes, Dad, we're on our first mission today. I'm like, sounds like a little 5-year-old kid. 30 years old. I said, really, really, really? He said, yeah, guess what? Guess what? That's why I know he's in touch with his true what? Self that he discovered at 19. Because I didn't shut down his exploration. And I said, no, what? He said, you know, we had to go through, we had to kick the door in, and guess what? Guess what? I said, what? I was the first one in. The greater the danger, the what? That's his identity. Now, when he discovered that about himself, nature knew, I must release chemicals at about this age. It's called a shift in cognition. I'm not going to get into the details with you, but that's what's going on with these kids, folks. They aren't stupid, they're not immature, and they aren't losing it. Nature says, when you decide to figure out what's there, the true self that you're born with, you've got to be ready because it is immense, and if you follow it, you must be courageous. Whatever that true self is. And sometimes it's what your parents said you were not going to be. No, you're going to be a doctor. No, I'm going to be no, you're going to, oh my gosh, you got to have this invincibility. So that's the first one, sense of invincibility. The second one here, around age 14 to 15, great expectation. That is called a sense of grandeur. They just think something big's going to happen, right? I'm going to be great. I'm going to be great. And they get bored so easy, don't they? Oh man, that party was nothing. They want everything to be what? Big. And the research called that grandiosity. No, nature's got it right. If you are going to transition to adulthood and bring into your adulthood your true self and not what's being imposed on you, but remain true to what you were born with, you had better have these kinds of sensibilities. Sense of grandeur. Tap into it. You cannot know your true self without that. And then the third one is this sense of unique greatness. That's called a sense of daring. The researchers called it risk-taking. These kids are always risk-taking. Sense of daring. Steve Jobs. You guys know him, right? Founder of Apple. There you go. When he tapped into what was going on, I love watching the documentary on him. When he tapped into what he was in touch with, you know what his first decision was? He was old. Walked out of college. And then he goes on some trip to figure out some things, whatever. He had to follow his true self. Here's what nature says. Nature says, during this period of development, they're in the process of trying to form their identity. And the great work that you all are doing is helping him to do that. And so, just know, every you possesses, so do you. We're born with this self that's within us. And that is some of the newest, most wonderful breaking research now. And for those who want to Google that and learn more, just Google the word self-access. That's what they're calling it. The brain, the prefrontal cortex, self-access means I can access information about myself. Who am I? What are my gifts and talents? What do I really, 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 really want? That is what is at stake from about age 13 until about age 30. That is the span of development in which the brain is spinning. And what they need during that period of time is something I'll get to shortly, but you all are already providing for them. But the self is primary, the self is born, the ego is developed. In other words, they come into the world with the self. I tell people that who you are was born with you, came to the world with you. It's just going to take 30, 40, 50 years for it to unfold. And that's called development. In my dreams, you can get a youth justice system that can understand that. Because when you've had tough stuff in your life, sense of invincibility can get out of control, can't it? And so it's how we interpret the behavior. Is it wrong to shoplift? You bet. And I'm going to show you the framework that the state is now using to address that. But to address it in a way that allows the exploration to continue. And not to shut it down. It's called restorative justice. Just in case I get going too fast and try to wrap up. All right. 1 minute. Okay, so all this says is that don't worry about all of this. Done wonderful research. The only reason I put that there is I always just focus on these 3 things here. Behavior is last. We don't get to behavior until there's brain function and identity, and behavior flows from identity. Your identity is your way of exploring, discovering, and engaging. It's your narrative about yourself. It's your story to yourself about yourself. And that's what kids are trying to develop. And if they don't have a sense of self and a positive narrative, then you cannot change the behavior. If we just work here and we don't work upstream, we miss a whole lot. So just Lofowitz lays out, I credit him for the research he's done, and he explains in his book how the brain does all of that. But we ought to be in the business of helping people form an identity, not in the business of extinguishing behaviors. Form an identity, not extinguishing behaviors. Great. And so, what might be a good approach to advocacy as we kind of pull it together and wrap it up? I said all of that, which is a lot that I've just like force-fed to you. And you guys are just right there, so appreciate your involvement with that, is that all the things you all are doing is great work. There's 3 things that then a young person needs. They need a space, lots of spaces to explore and discover and engage and determine who they are and to be able to make mistakes doing it. And Joseph Pierce does a great piece of work in his book saying what they need is a matrix. And a matrix comes from the idea of the womb. And what it provides is, first of all, a source of possibilities. So a unique approach that's being used by a lot of jurisdictions around the country now is called OST, Out of School Time Programs. And I talked to someone who is doing some of that stuff, but they did a big study in Washington, D.C. and they went to the 3 most violent neighborhoods and wanted to find out which neighborhoods were doing the best at reducing violence. And the one that was doing the best at reducing violence is the neighborhood in which the school and school partners had over like 30 after-school clubs for all kinds of stuff. Radio and dance and art and dancing, whatever. In other words, they gave them tons of possibilities for young people to explore in positive ways. I could try to be invincible at that. Let me see if I could be a radio DJ. Which, by the way, the only reason I'm smiling at that is because I got to do that when I was in high school. We came up with that idea. We said, it's quiet in the morning, and I was in student government, and we used the PA system for a radio program. And the assistant principal looked at me and said, thank goodness. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And he could have said, no. Now, where did that come from? Look at what I'm doing right now. Apparently something in my identity at 16, well, I like to, go ahead and say it, I like to talk. I like to get a message over to somebody. And at that point, my exploration needed to be a radio station. And me and a buddy, I remember it was 3 of us, right? Because he was like a musician, whatever. And for 15 to 20 minutes, we would. He put the PA system on and with it. And I said, good morning, fellow students. I'm like reliving it, the whole thing right now. But what a growth experience. It allowed me to approach, explore, discover, engage. So, multiple clubs during the summer, during holiday periods, having scores of things that young people can do. You can Google this, and they have wealth of research. It's called the OST, Out of School Time Movement is now being called. Multiple jurisdictions around the country where they are bringing together all these opportunities. The teen summer bucket list, this is just from one community. where they figured out all the things that teens in their jurisdiction wanted to do. And they made a bucket list for all their teens. And found a bunch of volunteers to go, let them go do it. It's either that or they're going to go out and create their own what? Opportunities and possibilities. So we either let them do their thing or we join them. It's called empowerment. All right? A source of energy to explore it. Yeah, give them support. Help them out. And a safe space to do it in. And that's you're not going to get crushed when you make a mistake. We're not going to view you as a negative or a bad human being. That that's a fancy word, I just want to toss it out. It has what's called the iatrogenic effects. The research has said that formal processing in the juvenile court system has zero crime control effect. There is no empirical proof that taking a kid through the juvenile justice system will control the crime in your community. Zero. Over 40 studies have proven it. And we still keep thinking that the harder I hit them, the better they're going to straighten out. Do you know why that doesn't work? It's because when you hit them hard, you are changing their narrative. You are affecting their identity. Oh, I'm a bad kid now. Guess what you've just done? You have shaped their identity, and now you're going to get the behavior. It's counterintuitive. Well, we should be rewarding these kids and not rewarding them. And I'll show you what you can do. They have to repair the harm. It can't be sanctioned. All right, so great. So here's Wisconsin's youth justice system. All right, I'm going to go about 2 or 3 minutes over. Here's Wisconsin's youth justice system. Love it. This is a slide in the new training. Love what they've done. They said this is the old youth justice system, which was like saying that in some ways the school system had become blended too much with youth justice stuff. And youth justice sort of was becoming the hammer for the bad kids in the school system and the child welfare system. So they're just kind of saying that we don't want this. Those are places where we need to keep the opportunities alive, and this is the vision of the new system. Let us work with the kids who have had the most harm done to them. Yes, their behavior is problematic, but it's problematic because the research tells us that their development, somewhere along the way, they didn't get the neural circuits they needed. So you send those ones to us, not to punish them, but they need more intensive work to get their narrative changed. Get them to reshape their identity. They need a special package of experiences to get them to rethink and to explore. And we'll specialize in those. So those aren't the bad kids. Those are just the ones who need a whole lot more work around learning how to explore, discover, and engage. And a whole lot more work getting them out of fight, flight, or freeze. So this is called restorative justice, and it asks wonderful questions. Now we are using this, and we're training the state of Wisconsin on this. Restorative says the first question isn't, what did you do wrong? Remember the first slide? The first question is what was the harm? To the community and to you. And so we're going to assess trauma. We're going to get deep histories. We want to know what's going on and try to figure out what's happening. Some 80% of kids in Florida system had at least 2 or 3 trauma episodes in their lives. And so we want to figure that out. And then we say, now what can we do to repair the harm? So you shoplifted. So how are we going to repair the harm? Well, one good way to repair the harm if you shoplifted is, I do this back and forth, I always run out of time, but is, how about we go over there and you explain to the store owner that that was a mistake, and you volunteer there for a couple of weeks to help things out with him. That's called restorative. You know why that's powerful? I am not going to allow this child to build a narrative that is separated from the community. Keep that narrative about yourself. Keep that identity locked into the community. Go repair the harm. Don't send them off. You screwed up. Bam. Did you learn your lesson? That allows their identity to start detouring from us. We want to keep them here. Keep the exploration with us. And last, now, how can we demonstrate? I don't like the word demonstrate. I prefer saying, how can we now return to being positive, a role in the community? What's some after-school program? And for that youth justice system to work, we need advocates like you. Do we have some positive programs we can send them to? I would tell you, I work with youth justice systems all over the place, and they're like, we do that, Jonathan, if we had some community programs that we can send them to. So thank you all for what you're doing. So this research tells us that, you know what? Your serious chronic violent offenders, they're a small percentage. Most offenders in most jurisdictions who go to juvenile court, they're not serious, they're not violent, and they're not frequent offenders. 66% of them. Only about 3% are really, really, really violent. We spend tons of money on these kids, and shouldn't. Actually don't even need to. I shared this, I spoke at a judicial college in Wisconsin about 3 months ago. Judge pulled me aside after I walked through these slides, some other slides. He says, Mr. Wright, really, these kids here, I shouldn't even be seeing them. He wouldn't say it out loud to all the other judges, like 150 judges there, right? And I said, thank you, Your Honor. He said, I shouldn't even see them. He says, now, I need to work with those. And these chronic police, non-serious, non-chronic, non-court. What are you talking about? A judicial process? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, I've traveled the country doing this stuff. And so here's what we need. Yes, we need to divert. Now Wisconsin is establishing a diversion policy. Wisconsin is now adopting for statewide use a new instrument that will assess risk factors, protective factors, and strengths. Isn't that exciting? Required assessment up front every time a child comes in order to divert. Right? We need to rehabilitate those chronic offenders. I mean, even if you're not serious, but you're chronically offended, got to rehabilitate. And yes, we do need to lock up some kids at that 3% who are walking around with a .357 Magnum and they want to shoot somebody. Because they've learned to explore and discover by intimidating and doing harm. Lock them up. But you don't throw away the key. While there, you better do a whole lot of work to get that brain rewired. Fantastic. So, that's the end of my presentation. So we try to do work in order to make sure they recover, they change, and that they grow. Is now where Wisconsin is going in the work that they're doing. So excited about that, excited about you guys. So let's do some questions here, and then we'll be ready to wrap. Thank you very much, guys. This was great. You guys really, really great.
So who has questions? I'll bring the microphone around.
What is the success rate, or maybe a bad word, for children who come in very badly damaged? Working with them, using this approach to change that identity, to undo maybe severe mental harm. I'm just very curious about that.
I don't have hard numbers. I know I do. One of the people I worked with one of those correctional facilities and did a lot of work there. So I don't have hard numbers. It's difficult, but let me tell you why that is. It's because in order to, it's a resource thing, and that's why meetings like this is so important. So in order to get the brain rewired, the brain has to respond to experiences that are positive and healthy with sufficient, 3 things. I want to write this down. Sufficient intensity, frequency, and duration. It's called dosage. So it's got to be intense. It's like when you go to the doctor. Intensity is, the milligrams, and then the frequency is twice a day, and the duration is for the next 3 months, right? And they'll adjust it until your body acts right? So for kids who have serious harm and have great difficulty, need to be insecure, right? That takes a long time with very intensive programming with highly skilled people. When those elements are there, these kids come out and do fairly well. But a state has to commit to doing that and doing it well. And so the work they're doing around closing down Lincoln Hills, thank you, yeah. And what they're going to, I'm watching that closely. But they're trying to figure out, we got to do something that provides that. So yeah, it's tough. Yes.
I think the other people are good. I'm just putting them, I'm in line. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off someone else's. So on the one slide where you're saying we have to provide them with opportunities, a source of opportunities, and then the second point below that was provide them with a source of energy for those. And the thing that I thought of immediately was like school lunches and food quality and that kind of stuff. And just is that something that is considered by you know, this whole judicial model, do they consider that as part of their responsibility or something to pull into those programs?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that the judicial system, considers that a part. But the providers that youth justice systems are partnering with, they're getting a better handle of that. That's sort of where that piece has to occur. We got to do a little bit of work around educating judges, but I'm doing some work in Milwaukee County. In fact, continue rewriting the whole youth justice case management system. But the first group I met with was that network of providers, some 80 providers providing services, communicating this to them so that when they send them there, that does get provided. Yes.
Thank you. This has just been a lot of great ideas I need to process. How long, in your experience, has it taken for the judicial system to successfully make a switch? And have you seen any judicial system that's been successful in transitioning to this type of rehabilitation?
The switch hasn't been made yet. It's quite a battle. We've been at it for a long time. I started doing work on this 15 years ago. It was an excellent model. We were doing justice reform. There's a judge by the name of Judge Teskey in Georgia who's doing some extraordinarily good work. There are pockets of success that are out there, but by and large, we've not quite gotten our arms around it, so the judicial system is not quite there. A little bit ahead of them are some state systems, like the Department of Children and Families, that stepped up and said, we're rewriting our curriculum. And they even acknowledge we've got to get the judges on board at some point. Painting, art, going for walks, climbing rock hills, whatever. But you got to find it, and it's got to be something they're very passionate about. And the reason that's important is because that came into the world with them. You're born with a certain temperament, certain interests, certain somethings. And it's nature's way of saying, these are the clues to who you truly are. And then you got to take that and have some extraordinarily great experience with them in terms of doing that is the best thing that I can say. And do it with intensity, do it with frequency, and do it with a whole lot of duration. I think sometimes we do the reverse. We spend a whole lot of time saying, you got to learn to stop doing that. And that behavior just doesn't work here. And you got to keep saying that. Remember, I said it works up to a point, but it's also saying, what are you passionate about? And what would you love doing? And what the research tells us is they do that over and over and over. Yeah, it slowly is a brain change. And I don't have time to tell you no stories about how that worked, but trust me, it works. It's just hard. It's just hard. Oh, yeah, be mine. I took over, so I've got to follow your lead. Sorry about that.
Hi, what advice do you have as it relates to building trust? Because I find that to be the biggest hurdle with children, especially